All right, everybody. Today is February the 18th. It is Sunday evening, just a little bit after the weekly open. Let's see the market outlook and plans for the week ahead. So let's go ahead and start off with the events bit. Monday is going to be a bank holiday, so definitely expecting some interesting flows on Monday. If I had to guess, because of the fact that we're in a risk-on regime right now, kind of expect that Bitcoin will be mostly sideways, and then the select strong alts will probably have decent performance. I saw a lot of stuff popping off during the weekend, and I imagine that some of that stuff will sustain. Primarily AI coins moving a lot. There's, that get kind of that gut feeling that that some of those flows will shift away from AI temporarily. Some of those will pull back, and maybe it'll move into some other narratives like RWA. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So, other than that, there's really no events, so we can probably just go ahead and dive straight into the Bitcoin macro. So as far as the Bitcoin macro is concerned, everything's still super bullish. For those of you guys that have been watching all the more recent updates, you already know that I'm definitely in buy the dip mode. Expecting shallow pullbacks to be the play, particularly altcoins. But you look at this chart, super bullish. I don't even actually know in terms of percentages, but let's do that really quickly. From all-time high, we are just over 30% away from all-time highs. The trend has been really strong now. We've been in a sustained uptrend for like 14 and a half months. It's been incredible to participate in, super appreciative and grateful for the opportunities that we've been awarded during this time. I see really no indication that we should be trying to fade the trend. That's been ever since in like the middle of Q4 where I pivoted back to being super bullish again. I really see no reason to fade this trend, just to be a trend respecter. And I think you'll be rewarded for it. So there isn't too much to cover on macro as far as like strong changes from the original thesis. If I'm just to cover a few kind of key details, macro support right now is around 45K. Macro resistance is around 54K. Right, these are the two kind of key areas to pay attention to. Given the strength of the trend, I don't really think that any pullbacks that we would get would be really into that macro, 2021 VWAP area. That's the main support. But I think that most likely what will happen is if we do get a pullback this week, that it will most likely be more shallow. So I have kind of a medium time frame pullback, and that we'll go over later, but the kind of more extended pullback I would see would be towards like 48, maybe into like 46s at the lowest. So something like this. This lines up really well with kind of previous points of resistance that have been flipped, and with the yearly VWAP and stuff, etc. So if we were to get any sort of meaningful pullback, I think that this is roughly what it would look like. And, it would probably hurt a little bit from a positioning standpoint for myself at least. But, to look at it glass half full, if I get stopped out on some trades or I'm forced to cut them, this should be a great opportunity to reposition for that kind of final move. Because I think that trading towards, we're so close to 54K right now, which is 2021 value area high. I think it's just, a matter of time. I would say it's a very high probability that we trade into 54K this week. And judging the interaction with 54K is going to be really important. It's going to be a very strong resistance. Just go ahead and look at the order books right now, and there is a lot of ask liquidity up there, which we will be covering later. But assuming that those asks hold the line, it's going to be extremely difficult for bulls to get through that. So one of the kind of key things that I'm looking at, if we look at what's happened recently on medium time frame, there's been a lot of Dalai Lamas taking place. You get little small pukes. People kind of lose their minds. They the bears go around and start collecting clout for their 2% short. And then we mean revert it within a matter of hours, right? So I think that one of the main theses that I'm going to be working with this week is I think there's going to be one more kind of Dalai Lama play. So if we get a decent little puke, especially where open interest gets wiped from longs, I think that will probably Dalai Lama one more time. And then if that happens, some psychological point, that will I think that will really make a lot of the, faders kind of flip and submit. And that's probably where the actual kind of legitimate pullback comes. So to be clear, we'll cover this a medium time frame, but I think that we're probably going to have one more kind of Dalai Lama setup. People will probably get really comfortable with being risk on and being, bullish, and then that will probably lead to the actual real washout, which again I do think is going to be shallow. Theoretically, we could pull back further than this kind of doodle that I have, but yeah, I mean, I really do think that it makes the most sense for it to be not that extended. So if we get over 54K, then 60K is the final resistance. I don't think that it's going to be easy to get over 54K. But if we get over 54K, we're going to be looking for the, reaction with 60K. And if we get over 60K, that's going to lead to all-time highs, and we're going to get into no man's territory with levels at that point. How I trade price discovery when it's trying to find value and stuff, I'm just going to be marking out composites along the way. For those of you guys in the Paragon, it might be worthwhile to go back and look at some of my analysis in 2021 and how I was, 2021, 2022, to see how I was marking out the composite structuring. It should be something you guys are already familiar with. There's a whole bunch of videos covering that stuff. But yeah, I think that that's the best way to view, the levels that you should interact with is going to be, one is going to be composite structuring, and two is going to be VWAP standard deviations, right? So like definitely paying attention to standard deviations, which we're trading above the majority of them, but we'll look at that momentarily. So anyways, keeping it short and sweet, these are the main kind of plans that, make sense to me on higher time frame. We should probably struggle to get through 54K. There's a lot of ask liquidity up here. If we do a pullback, I imagine it'll be a little bit more shallow. If we get over 54K, we're looking at 60K. If we get over 60K, we're going to gig ascend, and we're looking, up into the 70s or 80s as the next kind of struggle point from there. To go over the kind of opposing side, if we pull back further, any of these kind of regions are probably going to end up serving as support. I really get that gut feeling, though, that we're not going to get any really strong pullback until we trade up higher first. So again, yeah, I think we'll trade up into the major resistance before we get a meaningful pullback. If we get a shallow pullback this week, it's almost certainly going to resolve as a Dalai Lama. There's no guarantees, but that's just definitely what I'm thinking right now. So let's get into the medium time frame chart. Okay, so two main things to be paying attention to this week are basically just acceptance outside of this value. So this is the range that we've been building up for. It hasn't been that long. It's only been a few days. But this is the range that we're working with right now. If we start to get acceptance above it, particularly that kind of slow grind up that is led by spot, if we see something like that, that is what will likely be leading to that, explosive move towards the 45K resistance, which is what I'm hoping to see. If we get a kind of Dalai Lama play like this, then I'm going to go super aggressive on it to try to take it up towards 54K, just like we saw right here. This play, you guys remember this from last week. Definitely was a incredible opportunity. Really appreciative that I was able to get really clean entries on it. I ended up actually being a little bit early to this, but that's kind of the beauty of the scale trading method, that even though I was a little early, my altcoin entries weren't that great, but my Bitcoin entry ended up being really good. It kind of worked out anyway. So coming back to this Dalai Lama conversation, I think that from a psychological standpoint, if we see one more clear Dalai Lama like we saw over here, we would get to the point where people would get really, really comfortable with expecting that. And that's probably why it won't work another time, right? So I think that we'll do one more Dalai Lama, and then following that, people will really submit to that idea, and then it will be over. That's kind of the way I try to view, the meta, is that whenever something becomes accepted by the maybe lower skilled players of the game, that's generally when it's over, right? So that's something I'm leaning into heavily, right? Definitely want to pay close attention to the composite structuring. I kind of slapped this on sort of lazily. The reason why I drew it this way, to be clear, is that this kind of looked like resistance, right? So I was kind of looking at like this was the resistance slash support kind of region. So I didn't really include this node. If you do include that, it doesn't really change it that much. It basically just raises or drops the value rate high by a little bit, or value rate low, excuse me. Doesn't really make a big difference. Last major conversation on this chart to pay attention to is the fat asks, right? So basically from 35 up to 50, or from 53 up to 54, very, very thick ask liquidity on spot. From a derivative standpoint, it looks like the book is definitely skewed towards the bid side, but from a spot standpoint, there's very, very fat asks across the board on Bitfinex, Coinbase, and Binance. So I really think that this will be an area that bulls struggle to get through. But I'll be paying very close attention if If the ask liquidity starts to thin out, that'll be something to pay attention to. Another key thing to pay attention to would be if, spot's leading. Right now, that spot premium is not really very intact. It's depending on which venues you look at, it's very murky right now, which is not uncommon during the weekend, guys. It actually is very common that during the weekend, the spot premiums dissipate as we get back into the boomer markets go live again, and the ETF TWAPs start firing off. That spot premium will probably return. So while perps are trading ahead of spot, that increases the likelihood of this Dalai Lama play coming out. For more information, check out the Paragon group with the link below, where I cover everything from how I trade to how you can develop your own style. That's pretty much it for the week, guys. I had some TLDR notes that are basically, you want to be buying pullbacks, chasing momentum, looking for shallow dips, and that kind of last argument that I think that there's going to be one more Dalai Lama, which will be a shift in sentiment, which would probably make people complacent. You guys know that there's a couple different ways to draw it out, but basically, there's a kind of a point where as price continues to go in a direction, you get to a point where people fade it, and there's a point where people start to get they kind of stop fading it and just submit to the narrative, and that's when you kind of die, right? So I think that we're kind of getting to the point where the faders are starting to fully submit, and that we probably get one more legitimate leg before there's a more painful shakeout kind of thing. Definitely want to pay attention to the fact that halvening is a month and a half, or it's about 2 months away. It should be in mid-April when the halvening comes. Speculating whether we're going to make fresh highs before then or whatever is, coin flip kind of thing. As price develops more, I can maybe get a better rate on that. Right now, it's just a coin flip whether we would be able to do that or not, but it doesn't really matter, guys. I am super confident that over the next year or two that there's going to be some wild stuff going on in crypto, and that we will have lots of opportunity to make money. So stay focused, eyes on the prize, and good luck out there, guys. And should have a lot of content coming your way. Cheers, everybody.